was probably on his radar, so God knows who was, accused everyone else of doing everything horrible.
Whatever it is, everyone has a right to say, we live in thankfully a free country.
And you don't sort of hold your breath and think, oh, please don't get in the way of my mum's.
A single text message illuminated the darkness of Tom Parker Bowles' bedroom in the early hours of that fateful morning. The words on the screen reflected a decision made after decades of silence, a burden finally becoming too heavy to bear. He switched off his phone, placed it face down on the nightstand, and began preparing for the day that would change the monarchy forever. St. James Palace gleamed under the afternoon sun, its historic walls standing witness to centuries of royal triumphs and scandals. Inside, beneath ornate chandeliers and before a sea of diplomatic faces, Queen Camilla approached the podium with practiced grace. Her annual Commonwealth address was being broadcast live to millions across the globe. Palace aides exchanged satisfied nods as she delivered each carefully crafted line with the poise they'd spent months rehearsing. What no one noticed was Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's 50-year-old son, shifting uncomfortably at the edge of the room. His fingers traced the outline of a worn photograph in his pocket, a faded image of his mother from before the crown, before everything changed. A palace aide glanced his way, noticing the unusual tension in his normally composed demeanor. But Tom's attention remained fixed on his mother. On stage, Camilla continued with practiced charm, her voice steady and authoritative. She faltered almost imperceptibly as she spotted Tom moving toward the stage. Her lifetime of royal training kicked in as she smoothly continued her address, but those closest to her noticed her knuckles whitening around the speech papers. Laura Lopes, Tom's sister, reached for her brother's arm as he passed her seat. The silent exchange between siblings spoke volumes. Her pleading eyes, his resolute expression. Security personnel exchanged confused glances. Protocol dictated immediate intervention for anyone approaching the monarch during an official address. But this was the Queen's son. Their hesitation created the critical window Tom needed. 3 steps from the podium, Camilla locked eyes with her son. In that fleeting moment, the royal mask slipped. Mother and son, not queen and subject, shared a look of recognition, of understanding what was about to unfold. For a split second, Camilla's face softened, revealing a glimpse of regret, perhaps even fear. Then Tom reached for the microphone. The room fell into stunned silence as he firmly pulled it toward himself. Cameras that had been panning across the dignitary-filled room suddenly zoomed in, capturing the unprecedented moment in excruciating detail. Tom's voice, surprisingly steady, filled the hall as he introduced himself and began speaking about the woman behind the crown. Camilla's composure fractured. Her hand trembled as she reached toward her son, uncertainty playing across her features. Was she trying to reclaim the microphone or touch his arm in silent pleading? The ambiguity of that gesture would be analyzed by body language experts for months to come. King Charles half rose from his seat, torn between monarchical protocol and human reaction. Prince William, seated nearby, leaned forward with an unreadable expression. The royal machine, so carefully calibrated for centuries, had no contingency for this family rupture happening on live television. Tom's words flowed with the force of long-suppressed truth, describing how he'd watched his mother transform from the woman who raised him with warmth and honesty into someone he barely recognized, someone willing to sacrifice anything, anyone, for the power she now held. Behind them, palace officials frantically signaled to the broadcast team. The BBC producer's hand hovered over the broadcast delay button but didn't press it. This was historic, unprecedented, the kind of raw moment that defined epochs. Camilla's face had gone pale. The practiced royal smile vanished completely. She looked suddenly older, vulnerable. Her eyes darted to Charles, to her daughter Laura, to the exit doors, assessing escape routes like a cornered animal. Tom's voice softened briefly when addressing his mother directly, acknowledging how he had kept her secrets when the press hounded them, defended her when the world called her the most hated woman in Britain, stood by her through the Diana years. A palace guard finally moved toward the stage, but King Charles subtly raised his hand, stopping the intervention. Whatever was happening, he seemed to recognize it had momentum that couldn't be halted without making everything worse. Tom pulled a folded document from his pocket, referencing evidence of Camilla's involvement in the press campaign against her own family members and the lengths she went to secure her position. Cameras captured the exact moment Camilla recognized the paper. Her composed features collapsed into naked horror. She swayed slightly, gripping the podium for support. Tom continued speaking about family, questioning whose family Camilla had truly been protecting through her actions. In the third row, Laura covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook silently. The personal cost of this public moment was etched in her posture. Camilla finally found her voice, whispering directly to her son rather than into the microphone. The intimacy of that single word cut through the grandeur of the room. Tom's face hardened in response to her unheard plea. As Tom turned back to the audience and began to detail the contents of the document, security finally moved in, surrounding both Camilla and Tom. The broadcast cut to the BBC studio, where shell-shocked presenters struggled to make sense of what viewers had just witnessed. But it was too late. Clips were already spreading across social media at lightning speed. Royal meltdown and Camilla exposed became global trending topics within minutes. The emergency meeting in the palace's Privy Council chamber that evening crackled with tension. King Charles sat at the head of the table, his face drawn with exhaustion. Royal advisors and crisis managers filled the seats, their hushed conversations creating a nervous symphony. Reports indicated social media was in complete meltdown, with every news outlet globally leading with the story. Speculation about the contents of the document Tom referenced ran wild. The Queen had been moved to Windsor Castle with doubled security. Tom remained at his London residence, refusing requests to come in for discussions. The Prime Minister, summoned immediately to the palace, raised the constitutional implications. If the allegations implied by the Queen's son proved to have merit, the monarchy itself hung in the balance. Meanwhile, at the Guardian newspaper, editor Emma Daly stared at her computer screen in disbelief. Her encrypted email had just pinged with an attachment. The full document Tom had referenced, sent from an anonymous address with a simple message about the public deserving the complete truth. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the pages. If verified, this would be more than a family squabble. It would be the biggest royal scandal since the abdication crisis of 1936. Tom sat alone in his kitchen, phone turned off, blinds drawn against the gathering press outside. On the table lay childhood photographs, his mother smiling genuinely, before the cameras and protocol had trained her to smile differently. Before ambition had changed everything. A knock on his back door brought his sister Laura, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Their tense exchange revealed the magnitude of what Tom had started. Reports suggested it could bring down the monarchy, that Charles might have to abdicate if the truth about Camilla's actions became widely known. The siblings debated whether the woman at the podium that day was still the mother they remembered, or someone else entirely. At Windsor Castle, Camilla stood at the window of her private suite, watching rain streak down the ancient glass. After dismissing her anxious lady-in-waiting, she moved to her writing desk and unlocked the bottom drawer with a small key she wore around her neck. From it, she withdrew a weathered journal, entries dating back decades to the earliest days of her relationship with Charles. Her fingers trembled as she turned the pages, scanning her own handwritten confessions from another lifetime. She'd done what was necessary, always, for the crown, for Charles, for herself. The choices had seemed justifiable in the moment, each small compromise, each strategic maneuver. But collected here, written in her own hand, they formed a damning portrait. The sound of helicopter blades cutting through the rain announced Charles's arrival. Camilla closed the journal and returned it to the drawer. She straightened her posture, adjusted her expression. The mask slid back into place with practiced ease. But in the mirror across the room, she caught a glimpse of herself, of the woman her son no longer recognized. For just a moment, neither did she. Within 48 hours, the global impact of Tom's actions became unmistakable. Parliament called an emergency session. Constitutional scholars appeared on endless news programs, debating the monarchy's future. Commonwealth nations issued carefully worded statements, expressing concern and continued monitoring of the situation. The document, now published in redacted form by major newspapers, contained evidence of Camilla's systematic campaign to secure her position. It detailed private investigators hired to gather leverage against rivals, carefully planted stories undermining those who opposed her, and financial arrangements with key media figures to shape public narratives. What made it especially damaging was that it wasn't just about the past. The most recent entries dated to just months earlier, long after she had been crowned queen, when such machinations should have been far behind her. Royal approval ratings, which had been gradually improving since Elizabeth II's death, plummeted overnight. Protesters gathered outside Buckingham Palace with signs demanding transparency and truth before crown loyalty. The crisis exposed deep fractures in public perception of the monarchy. Those who had long harbored suspicions about Camilla's influence found validation in Tom's revelations. Supporters of the late Princess Diana emerged with renewed vigor, seeing in this scandal confirmation of what they had always believed about the woman who had replaced their beloved princess. Younger Britons, already questioning the relevance of the monarchy in modern society, saw in this family drama further evidence that the institution was more soap opera than sacred tradition. Media scrutiny intensified as journalists uncovered additional details about Camilla's path to power. Former palace staff came forward with stories of strategic maneuvering and calculated image management. Several claimed to have witnessed Camilla's transformation from Charles's mistress to his wife to his queen consort, noting how her public persona evolved while her private ambitions remained constant. The royal family's initial response strategy, dignified silence, quickly proved inadequate. By the third day, palace sources began leaking carefully crafted narratives suggesting Tom's actions stemmed from long-standing personal grievances rather than genuine concern for truth or transparency. These attempts at controlling the narrative backfired spectacularly when Tom released additional correspondence showing his repeated attempts to address these issues privately over the years. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle maintained a conspicuous silence from their American home, though royal watchers noted Harry had previously made oblique references to Camilla's media connections in his memoir. Their absence from the fray spoke volumes, especially when contrasted with Prince William's active involvement in crisis management at the palace. On the fifth day, a startling revelation emerged. Camilla had maintained a private email account through which she had communicated with media executives and public relations specialists as recently as the previous month. These communications, excerpted anonymously through social media, showed her actively shaping coverage of other royal family members, including strategic undermining of anyone perceived as a threat to her position. Public opinion polarized further. Royalists defended Camilla as a woman who had navigated the treacherous waters of public life with the tools available to her. Critics saw in her actions the corruption of an institution that claimed moral authority while functioning like any other power structure, through manipulation, strategic alliances, and the occasional sacrifice of truth. 1 week after the broadcast, Tom received an unexpected visitor. A royal car pulled up to his house, drawing excited murmurs from the journalists still camped outside. Prince William walked up the path alone, without visible security. The future king entered the home of the man who might have destroyed the institution he would one day inherit. Their meeting lasted over 2 hours. No details emerged immediately, but palace sources later indicated William had come not as an emissary of the current king and queen, but as the future of the monarchy, seeking to understand the full scope of the situation he would eventually inherit. That evening, William was spotted entering Kensington Palace with a copy of the document in his hand, his expression grave. Political analysts noted that this separate action by the heir apparent suggested a possible fracturing of the royal response, perhaps even the beginning of a transition of power that would bypass Camilla entirely. As the crisis entered its second week, parliamentary discussions intensified. The role of the monarchy in contemporary British society became the subject of earnest debate, with several MPs suggesting the time had come for a modern constitutional convention to reconsider the crown's role, powers, and limitations. Then came the stunning palace announcement. Queen Camilla would address the nation alone, without prepared remarks or advisors present. The unprecedented broadcast would air live, with no delay or editing. The night of the broadcast, the world watched as Camilla appeared on screen. Gone was the formal attire, the carefully styled hair, the practiced royal demeanor. She sat simply dressed, without her crown or royal insignia. Her address was remarkable for its candor. She spoke not as a queen, but as a mother who had hurt her children, as a woman who had made choices. Some she stood by, others she deeply regretted. She acknowledged the document contained truths she had avoided confronting publicly. While some allegations had been exaggerated in reporting, she admitted the core remained accurate. She had done what she believed necessary to protect her position, her future, and her ambition. Across Britain, families fell silent before their screens. In pubs, conversations hushed. This was history unfolding in real time. Camilla acknowledged she could not undo these actions, only recognize their impact on her children, on the monarchy, and on public trust in the crown. Her gaze into the camera became more direct, the polish falling away completely as she addressed her children. She acknowledged their childhoods had been sacrificed for her choices, recognizing too late the weight they had carried. In his London home, Tom watched with his sister beside him, their hands clasped tightly together as their mother spoke to them through the screen. Through the millions of viewers witnessing this extraordinary moment, Camilla concluded by admitting she had failed the standard to which she should be held. She announced upcoming meetings with the King and Prime Minister to discuss the appropriate path forward. The unspoken implication hung heavy. Abdication, a stepping back, some form of royal penance. Her final words echoed the protesters' chants, "Truth before crown. It should always have been thus." The broadcast ended, leaving Britain and the world to grapple with a monarchy forever changed by one son's courage, one mother's confession, and the power of long-buried truths finally brought to light. Millions watched in stunned silence as Laura Lopes lunged forward and snatched the microphone from Queen Camilla's hands on live television. The terror in the Queen Consort's eyes told the whole story. This wasn't planned. What explosive royal secrets was Laura about to expose that made Buckingham Palace cut the broadcast feed within seconds? Palace insiders confirm this wasn't just a family squabble. It was the moment the monarchy's darkest secrets nearly spilled into public view. Royal experts worldwide are still reeling from the incident, calling it unprecedented and the most significant threat to the monarchy in modern times. For the first time, we reveal what actually happened in those chaotic moments, what Laura intended to expose, and the frantic palace cover-up operation that followed. By the end of this exclusive report, you'll discover the bombshell document Laura planned to reference on air, one so damaging that intelligence services were called in within minutes. Laura Lopes has always been the invisible royal, the art curator who deliberately stayed in the shadows while her mother rose from royal mistress to queen consort. Impeccable sources close to the royal household describe Laura as thoughtful, intelligent, and fiercely private. This careful distance from the spotlight made her sudden public rebellion all the more shocking. For years, Laura maintained dignified silence through scandals, criticism, and her mother's controversial ascension to the throne. She built a respectable career in London's art world, married without fanfare, and raised her children well away from the royal circus. Palace insiders reveal Laura had become increasingly troubled by what she witnessed behind palace walls. Her rare appearances at royal functions were marked by visible tension, particularly around King Charles. At last month's garden party, keen observers noted Laura spent less than 2 minutes in conversation with her stepfather, before abruptly excusing herself. Body language experts who reviewed the footage detected extreme discomfort and barely concealed hostility beneath her polite smile. Everything changed the moment she stepped onto that stage. The charity literacy event at Royal Albert Hall was proceeding exactly as planned. Queen Camilla, dressed in royal purple and diamonds once belonging to the Queen Mother, delivered her prepared remarks with practiced ease. Security personnel stood at standard positions, completely unprepared for a threat from within the royal family itself. Television cameras broadcast the benign event to millions across Britain and worldwide via streaming services. Laura entered from stage left, moving with such purpose that staffers assumed she was part of the program. Her determined stride caught security off guard. Who would suspect the Queen's own daughter? In 3 swift steps, she reached the podium. What happened next unfolded in just 7 seconds. Yet royal watchers say those seconds will forever alter the monarchy's future. Laura's hand shot forward, grasping the microphone firmly. Camilla's expression transformed from momentary confusion to abject horror in a heartbeat. their eyes locked in what royal biographer Malcolm Templeton calls the most charged mother-daughter confrontation in royal history. Laura turned toward the audience, opened her mouth to speak, and the feed cut to black. But you won't believe what slipped through before the blackout. In the 3 seconds before broadcast engineers scrambled to kill the feed, Laura uttered exactly 17 words. Those words, confirmed by 3 separate sources present at the event, sent immediate shockwaves through Buckingham Palace. The archives contain proof of royal involvement in government surveillance programs targeting British citizens, she began. The remainder of her planned statement was cut, but those initial words were enough to trigger the highest level of palace crisis protocols. Remember that terrified look on Camilla's face? Here's why it appeared so quickly. Sources close to the Queen Consort confirm she immediately recognized which documents Laura was referencing. These aren't just embarrassing family records, they're explosive evidence of a decades-long program that, if fully exposed, could fundamentally damage public trust in both the monarchy and government institutions. In a moment, you'll hear exactly what those documents contain and why they've been hidden for generations. The Royal Albert Hall erupted into chaos the instant the broadcast cut. Security personnel swarmed Laura, creating a human shield as they escorted her from the stage. Witnesses described Queen Camilla collapsing into her chair, visibly shaking as her private secretary rushed to her side. Within 60 seconds, elite security teams sealed all exits, confiscated phones from attendees, and initiated what one security expert calls textbook information containment protocols. Palace officials moved with unprecedented speed. Royal communications staff switched from routine public relations to full crisis management within minutes. Prime ministerial aides arrived on site within half an hour, suggesting coordination at the highest levels of government. Most telling was the arrival of representatives from Britain's intelligence services, confirmed by multiple attendees who recognized officials not typically present at royal events. Behind the scenes, a sophisticated damage control operation was already underway. Technical teams seized all recording equipment from media organizations. Staff members report being required to sign additional confidentiality agreements with penalties far exceeding standard royal protocols. One media technician described the atmosphere as more like a national security incident than a royal event. While official channels worked to suppress the incident, royal insiders were already leaking details through secure channels. Multiple sources confirm Laura had been systematically collecting evidence for years, gathering documents that contradicted official narratives about the monarchy's role in British political life. Her planned revelation was reportedly timed to coincide with the publication of archived materials scheduled for release next month, materials that will now likely remain sealed. Queen Camilla hasn't been seen in public since the incident. Official statements cite a minor respiratory infection, but palace insiders paint a very different picture. The Queen Consort reportedly hasn't left her private apartments for days, refusing all but essential meetings. King Charles's schedule, meanwhile, has been suspiciously packed with out-of-town engagements, creating physical distance from the unfolding family crisis. The strain within the royal family has never been more severe. Sources with direct access to senior royals describe open conflict between those who want Laura permanently excised from royal life and others advocating for reconciliation. At the center of this storm stands Tom Parker Bowles, Laura's brother, now forced to choose between loyalty to his sister and his increasingly prominent role in royal circles. Tom's position has become particularly precarious. Just hours before Laura's unprecedented action, he appeared on breakfast television promoting his latest cookbook, warmly describing his mother's support for his culinary career. Now, royal watchers report he's been placed in an impossible position, pressured by palace officials to publicly distance himself from his sister, while privately attempting to mediate this explosive family rift. Prince William has reportedly taken a hardline stance, viewing Laura's actions as a direct threat to the institution he will someday lead. Those familiar with senior royal thinking say he's advocating for a complete break, arguing that any compromise would show weakness that could encourage further revelations. William's perspective carries particular weight given his influence over royal communications strategy in recent years. Most intriguing is the response from Prince Harry and Meghan. Sources close to the couple report they've made multiple attempts to contact Laura through secure channels, recognizing parallels to their own experiences challenging royal protocols. Their outreach has reportedly been blocked by palace gatekeepers, determined to prevent any alliance between these royal outsiders. Laura herself has vanished from public view. Her London home stands empty, with neighbors reporting unusual activity in the early morning hours following the incident. Her husband has cancelled all professional engagements, and her children were abruptly withdrawn from their prestigious school. The family's complete disappearance suggests either a carefully planned escape or palace-orchestrated seclusion. The documents Laura attempted to expose reveal a systematic program of surveillance targeting political activists, journalists, and even members of parliament dating back to the 1960s. According to 3 separate sources who have seen these materials, the monarchy didn't just know about these operations. They actively facilitated them, providing cover for intelligence services to monitor British citizens without proper oversight. Most damaging are handwritten notes from senior royals expressing explicit approval for operations targeting civil rights organizations, anti-war protesters, and environmental activists. These operations extended well beyond legal surveillance, allegedly including active disruption of legitimate political organizations through infiltration and deliberate sabotage. The palace's desperation to suppress these revelations explains the unprecedented scale of their response. Intelligence experts consulted for this report confirmed that the mechanisms activated following Laura's attempted exposure typically reserve for extreme threats to national security. The involvement of government ministers and intelligence officials in what should be a family matter speaks volumes about what's really at stake. Within hours of the incident, an elaborate digital scrubbing operation was underway. Social media posts mentioning the event disappeared at an alarming rate. Technical experts note patterns consistent with advanced content management interventions typically reserved for national security situations. Mainstream media organizations suddenly developed collective amnesia, replacing initial reports with sanitized references to a brief technical interruption. What makes Laura's action particularly significant is her lifelong reputation for discretion. Unlike other royal rebels, she never sought the spotlight, gave interviews, or publicly criticized the institution. This wasn't an impulsive grab for attention. It was a deliberate choice by someone who had exhausted all internal channels for accountability. Sources close to Laura reveal she spent years attempting to address her concerns through proper royal protocols. She reportedly raised alarms directly with King Charles on at least 4 occasions, prepared detailed briefings for senior advisors, and even sought private counsel from former prime ministers familiar with the relevant historical periods. Every attempt was met with deflection, denial, or warnings about the consequences of pursuing such sensitive matters. The final straw reportedly came when Laura discovered plans to permanently seal specific historical records that would have eventually become public under normal archival rules. This decision, made at the highest levels of palace leadership, convinced her that institutional self-preservation had overtaken any commitment to historical truth. What does this mean for the future of the monarchy? Royal observers suggest this unprecedented breach from within the family's inner circle creates vulnerabilities no external criticism could achieve. When the daughter of the Queen Consort herself loses faith in the institution's integrity, it raises fundamental questions about what other secrets remain hidden behind palace walls. The most immediate concern for royal strategists is what Laura might do next. Despite aggressive containment efforts, she possesses knowledge and potentially documentation that could cause incalculable damage if made public. Her complete disappearance from public view has created a dangerous unknown for an institution that survives by carefully managing its image. Palace officials fear Laura may have created what security professionals call a dead man's switch. Arrangements ensuring sensitive information becomes public automatically if she doesn't regularly prevent its release. This would explain the frantic efforts to locate her and secure any materials in her possession, evidenced by unusual activity reported at her various properties. For Queen Camilla, this represents the greatest personal and professional crisis of her life. Sources describe her as completely shattered by her daughter's actions, torn between maternal instinct and institutional duty. The woman who navigated decades of public criticism to reach the throne now faces a threat from the person she least expected: her own daughter. The recorded words that slipped through before the broadcast blackout represented just the beginning of what Laura planned to reveal. According to sources who have seen her prepared remarks, she intended to name specific royal family members who approved surveillance operations, detail financial transactions used to fund these programs, and expose ongoing efforts to prevent historical accountability. Most explosive was her planned reference to a specific document, a 1977 memorandum bearing royal signatures, authorizing expanded domestic surveillance during a period of labor unrest. This document explicitly acknowledges the program's questionable legality, but dismisses concerns in favor of protecting established order. The palace's desperate efforts to suppress this revelation suggest the memo's authenticity is not in question. If these documents become public, royal experts suggest the constitutional implications would be far-reaching. The monarchy's carefully maintained political neutrality would be exposed as a carefully crafted fiction. Public trust, already fragile, could collapse entirely. For an institution that relies on tradition and reverence, such revelations might prove existentially threatening. The timing of Laura's action has raised additional questions among royal observers. Her move came just weeks before a scheduled state visit by controversial foreign dignitaries, a visit that would have placed her mother front and center in diplomatic ceremonies. Sources familiar with palace planning reveal that Laura had been specifically excluded from all related events despite her previous inclusion in similar functions. This deliberate sidelining reportedly came after she questioned the appropriateness of hosting leaders with questionable human rights records. The decision to grab the microphone during a high-profile charity event rather than a more private occasion suggests Laura specifically wanted maximum public impact. Adding another layer of intrigue, financial analysts have noted unusual movements in accounts connected to royal estates in the days following the incident. Large transfers between charitable foundations and private trusts controlled by senior royals have triggered automated monitoring systems at several major banks. While officially described as routine reallocations, the timing and scale of these movements suggest preparation for potential legal challenges or public relations crises. One financial security expert described the pattern as classic crisis mode wealth protection. Exactly the steps one would expect if the institution anticipated serious reputational damage. As palace officials work frantically to contain this crisis, one question remains unanswered. Where is Laura now? Some believe she's secured international protection, preparing to tell her story beyond the reach of British authorities. Others suggest she's negotiating terms, using the threat of disclosure to force meaningful reforms within the institution.
She was the villain. She was the third person in the marriage. She needed to rehabilitate her image.
The courtroom is silent. Everyone is watching, waiting. Then, something shocking happens. Queen Camilla's face turns pale. Her hands shake. Before anyone can react, she falls to the floor. Gasps fill the room. People jump up from their seats. Judges, lawyers, security, everyone is in shock. Just moments ago, she had stood there, waiting to hear her punishment. But as soon as the judge spoke, everything changed. The words hit her like a heavy weight. Her eyes widened, her body swayed. And then, she collapsed. Guards rush to her side. Some people whisper, others just stare. What was said in that courtroom? What kind of sentence was so shocking that it made the queen fall? The truth behind this moment is something no one saw coming. How did Queen Camilla end up in court? The story of how Queen Camilla ended up in court is truly shocking. It left the whole nation stunned. For years there had been whispers, small rumors in the air about royal money being spent where it shouldn't. But no one ever expected it to blow up like this. It all started with leaked documents. These papers didn't just come out of nowhere. They were leaked by someone who used to work inside the palace. The documents showed that millions of pounds from the royal funds were being used for personal luxuries, not just normal shopping or gifts, but private jets, secret holidays, and even hush money to cover up past royal scandals. One of the biggest shocks was that the money trail led straight to Queen Camilla. People had always joked about her love for the finer things, but now there was proof. Some claimed she knew about it, others said she didn't. But one thing was clear. This scandal was too big to hide. The public was furious. The cost of living was already hitting everyone hard. Families were struggling to buy groceries, pay bills, and survive. And here was the Queen Consort, using public funds like her own piggy bank. The anger grew every day. Protesters stood outside Buckingham Palace with signs that read, "Not with our money." The media had a field day. Every news channel, every newspaper, every social media platform was full of updates about Camilla's scandal. Every hour brought a new leak or a shocking twist. People couldn't stop watching. The British people felt betrayed, and the pressure on the royal family was at an all-time high. What made things worse was the fact that royals rarely face legal action. The last time the public saw a royal facing legal trouble was when Prince Andrew got caught up in a serious scandal. But even then, the family managed to protect him. This time, however, it was different. The evidence was too strong, and the people were too angry. There was no way out. The case had to go to court. The courtroom drama. The day of the trial felt like a movie. People gathered outside the court from early morning, holding signs and chanting. Reporters from all over the world were there, trying to get a glimpse of the Queen as she walked in. Everyone wanted to see her face. Would she look scared? Would she even show up? As the clock hit 9 a.m., the doors of the courtroom opened. Cameras flashed like crazy, and there she was, Queen Camilla. She wore a black dress and dark sunglasses. Her face was pale, and her lips tight. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just walked straight in, ignoring the crowd. But one thing was clear. King Charles was not with her. People noticed. It spoke louder than words. The air inside the courtroom was heavy. You could feel the tension. The prosecution was ready. They laid out every piece of evidence they had. Photos, receipts, bank records, all showing how money meant for charity and public projects had been used for Camilla's personal pleasures. Private island holidays, designer clothes, secret deals, everything was out in the open now. And then came the biggest twist. Statements from palace staff. People who had worked for the Queen stood in front of everyone and spoke. They talked about how they were asked to cover things up. They talked about the threats they received when they refused. One former staff member, with tears in her eyes, said, "We were told to stay silent or lose our jobs. We were scared." Camilla's defense team tried their best. They painted her as a woman who was just a victim of palace politics. They argued that she didn't know where the money was coming from. They said she simply trusted the wrong people. Her lawyer even said, Her Majesty only did what she thought was best for the crown. She never meant to harm anyone. But the damage was done. The court had heard too much. The people had seen too much. Deep down, even Camilla knew. This was not going to end well. The verdict and sentencing. After days of arguments, witness statements, and countless evidence being shown, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The courtroom went silent as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters held their breath. Even outside the court, people stood frozen, waiting. The judge began by recapping the case. He spoke about the years of misuse of funds, the lies, and the cover-ups. His voice was cold, firm, and full of disappointment. Then came the words that shook the entire nation. Her Majesty Queen Camilla is found guilty of the charges presented. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. Some cried, others clapped, and then the sentence was announced. Queen Camilla was fined millions of pounds. But that wasn't all. She was sentenced to 2 years of house arrest inside a royal estate. She was also stripped of several royal titles. From that day forward, she would no longer be known as Her Majesty in any official capacity. The camera zoomed in on Camilla's face. Her eyes filled with tears. She looked lost, broken, and humiliated. And then, right there in front of everyone, Camilla collapsed. Her body went limp as she fainted. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters shouted. Medical staff rushed in, trying to revive her. Outside, the scene was wild. Protesters cheered. They screamed, "Justice! Finally justice!" But not everyone was happy. Loyal royal supporters stood in tears, clutching pictures of Camilla and the king. It was a moment no one would ever forget. International media jumped on the story. Headlines all over the world screamed, "Queen collapses in court after sentence." The royal family's darkest day was now playing live on every TV screen across the globe. Royal family's response. As news of Camilla's collapse spread, all eyes turned to Buckingham Palace. Everyone wanted to know, how was King Charles reacting? Hours later, a royal spokesperson read out a statement from the king. His words were full of sadness. "My wife is a victim of circumstance. She has been treated unfairly. We will stand by her." But behind the scenes, rumors told a different story. Insiders claimed King Charles was furious, not just angry, but embarrassed that the woman he loved had dragged the monarchy through the mud. Things got worse when Prince William and Prince Harry reacted. William stayed silent, avoiding reporters, but sources close to him said he was heartbroken and disappointed. Harry, on the other hand, couldn't resist. Meghan posted a cryptic message on Instagram that read, "Karma always knows where to find you." Fans went wild. Was it aimed at Camilla? Many believed it was. Inside the palace, chaos broke out. Senior royal advisors held emergency meetings. Damage control plans were made. The royal family knew they were standing on thin ice. One wrong move, and the monarchy itself could fall. In another statement, the palace promised full cooperation with the law. But the truth was, they were scared. Scared of what this meant for the future. Impact on the monarchy. The impact of the scandal was bigger than anyone could have imagined. Overnight, public support for the royal family dropped. Polls showed shocking results. More than half the country now wanted the monarchy abolished. People were tired. Tired of scandals, tired of secrets, tired of paying for royal luxuries while they struggled to live. Talks began in Parliament about cutting royal funding. Why should taxpayers' money go to a family that misused it? The anger was real, and it was growing every day. The scandal didn't just stop in the UK. Commonwealth countries like Australia and Canada started asking tough questions. Was it time to break ties with the British monarchy? Could they really stand by a royal family involved in such corruption? For Camilla, the future looked bleak. People wondered, would she ever be seen in public again? Could she survive this? Rumors spread that she might lose her queen title forever. Some even said the king was considering exile, sending Camilla away to a private estate far from the public eye. The fairy tale was over. What was left was a royal family in ruins. The aftermath, and what's next. In the days that followed, updates about Camilla's health started to come out. She was recovering at a private estate, far from the cameras. Some sources claimed she was heartbroken. Others said she barely spoke. The once powerful queen consort was now a prisoner in her own palace. Whispers of divorce started floating around. People wondered if King Charles could really stay married to someone who brought so much shame to the crown. But the palace stayed silent, at least for now. Camilla's legal team hinted at a possible appeal. They were still fighting, still hoping to clear her name. But deep down, everyone knew.
Buckingham Palace, which has announced that the King has been diagnosed with cancer.
Can't mimic voices for love or money. I'm completely hopeless at it. I was the only one, so I think she carved her own role.
Dark clouds have gathered over the royal family. Queen Camilla, always strong in front of the world, has been seen breaking down in tears after receiving shocking news. A life sentence that changes everything. The palace halls, once filled with power and control, now feel heavy with fear and uncertainty. At the same time, another heartbreaking update shakes the kingdom. King Charles, already fighting a tough battle with cancer, faces a new twist in his health that no one saw coming. The weight of it all is too much to bear, and the royal family is struggling to hold things together. What led to this moment? What does this mean for the future of the monarchy? The truth behind these shocking events is more heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. Queen Camilla's alleged life sentence. The phrase life sentence is usually something we hear in courtrooms. It's a punishment for serious crimes, something that keeps people behind bars forever. So, when people say Queen Camilla has been given a life sentence, what does that actually mean? The truth is, Camilla is not in any legal trouble. She has not been sent to prison. Instead, this so-called sentence seems to be a metaphor. Many believe that Camilla is now trapped in a role she never truly wanted, facing endless criticism and public scrutiny. She has stepped into a position that comes with huge responsibilities, and it's weighing heavily on her. The rumors started spreading on social media and in tabloid newspapers. Some headlines made it sound like she was facing actual jail time. Others exaggerated her emotional state, claiming she was in tears and unable to handle the pressure. But where did this all come from? It seems that many of these stories were fueled by the ongoing debates about her place in the royal family. Some people still see her as the other woman from the past. Even though years have passed since Princess Diana's tragic death, the shadow of that history still lingers. Some tabloids thrive on this controversy, pushing dramatic headlines to attract attention. So, is Queen Camilla really serving a life sentence? Not in a legal sense, but emotionally, she might feel like she is stuck in a role that comes with endless criticism and expectations. Why Queen Camilla might be struggling emotionally. Camilla's journey into the royal family has never been smooth. From the very beginning, she was labeled as the woman who came between Prince Charles and Princess Diana. The world loved Diana. She was the people's princess, known for her kindness and warmth. So, when Charles's affair with Camilla became public, it was like a betrayal to many. Even after Diana's passing, Camilla was seen as a controversial figure. When she finally married Charles in 2005, many people still refused to accept her. And now, as queen consort, the pressure has only increased. Public perception of Camilla remains divided. Some have warmed up to her over the years, seeing her as a dedicated wife to Charles. But others still view her with suspicion. The comparison to Diana never goes away, and that can be emotionally draining. Imagine stepping into a role where millions of people constantly judge you, compare you, and question your worth. That's the reality Camilla faces every day. And then, there's the pressure within the royal family itself. Prince William and Prince Harry were deeply affected by their mother's story. While William has remained mostly respectful towards Camilla, Harry has been more outspoken. In his book Spare, Harry made it clear that he saw Camilla as someone who played the long game to secure her place in the royal family. These tensions, whether spoken or unspoken, add to the emotional burden Camilla carries. Now, with King Charles battling cancer, things have become even more complicated. She is expected to be strong, supportive, and ready to step up in his absence. But behind the scenes, she may be struggling with the weight of it all. Camilla's role in the monarchy becoming queen consort was never part of Camilla's original plan. When she married Charles, there were talks that she would only be called Princess Consort out of respect for Diana's legacy. But over time, Charles made it clear that he wanted Camilla to have full recognition as his queen. When Queen Elizabeth passed away in 2022, Camilla officially stepped into the role. But with that title came massive responsibilities. She is now expected to support the king, attend royal events, and uphold the image of the monarchy. Her transition from Duchess of Cornwall to queen consort was not an easy one. People still criticized her, questioned her worth, and compared her to Diana. She had to work extra hard to prove herself. Even now, she faces backlash whenever she makes a public appearance. Some believe she is undeserving of the title, while others feel she has earned her place. The question remains, does she feel trapped in this role? Some insiders suggest that Camilla never truly wanted this level of attention. She was comfortable staying in the background, but now, with Charles's health crisis, she is being pushed into a more central position. And with every move she makes, the world is watching. King Charles's cancer update. Just when the world was adjusting to the idea of Charles as king, shocking news came out. He had been diagnosed with cancer. The announcement was made by Buckingham Palace, but they did not reveal what type of cancer he has. All they confirmed was that it is not prostate cancer. The news left many people concerned. Charles is in his mid-70s, and health issues at this stage can be serious. He has already started treatment, but the palace has kept many details private. Medical experts have weighed in, saying that early detection is key, but without more information, it's hard to predict his recovery. The big question now is, how is the royal family handling this? How the royal family is reacting? Camilla has been by Charles's side, attending to royal duties while also supporting him behind closed doors. Some reports suggest that she has been under immense stress, trying to balance everything at once. Prince William has stepped up in his father's absence. As the next in line for the throne, he has taken on more responsibilities. His focus is not just on his father's health, but also on keeping the monarchy stable. And what about Prince Harry? His reaction has been one of the biggest talking points. After years of tension with the royal family, he made a quick trip to the UK after hearing about his father's condition. But the visit was short, and there was no sign of deep reconciliation. Many wonder if this crisis will bring the family closer, or if the distance will remain. The future of the monarchy, amidst health concerns. If King Charles's health worsens, what happens next? The answer is clear. Prince William is next in line, but is he ready? Many believe he has been preparing for this role his entire life. He is respected, responsible, and has the public's support. But stepping into the role of king is not easy, and with his father's illness, he may have to take on more leadership sooner than expected. The monarchy itself is at a crossroads. Public opinion about the royal family is changing. Some people still love and support them, while others question whether the monarchy should continue at all. Charles' illness and Camilla's struggles only add to the uncertainty. For now, the world watches and waits. Will Charles recover? Will Camilla find strength in her role? And will this crisis bring the family together or tear them apart? The royal family is facing one of its darkest moments, and the future has never felt more uncertain. With Queen Camilla in tears and King Charles's health hanging in the balance,